Hello, welcome to She's an Anomaly. Today's topic is going to be on stereotypes in the healthcare system. Many times when we think of a stereotype, our first thought is generally stereotyping in a more racial or gender idea, such as racial stereotyping, as in what Black people can do or cannot do, or gender norms or gender stereotyping, such as, well, men are better at this and women are not as good at that. That's the kind of stereotyping that we're used to. But there's a stereotyping that is even worse, and that happens in the medical field when it comes to health and mental health, because we have doctors have stereotypes, and because of these stereotypes that we are accustomed to having, it often hurts the healthcare. It hurts the healthcare of different people. So say if a person is overweight, or not necessarily overweight but bigger, and they come to the hospital and presenting with certain disorders, such as maybe they have a racing heartbeat, they're feeling faint, there's a problem. The doctor is going to automatically assume that it's because of their weight. And generally looking and say if they are a woman, they're Black, and they're bigger, the doctor just kind of dismisses the problem and believes, well, it's because you're Black, you're going to have high blood pressure problems. You're a woman, you're going to have issues, and because you're big. And assuming, well, if you just lose weight, your problems will go away. Well, the issue is that perhaps the woman is not actually overweight. In fact, she may be a normal weight for her size. And the possibility it could be that she's actually malnourished. But because the doctor just assumes that because she's a Black woman and she's big, that she's overweight. That is a stereotype. That is a deadly stereotype. But because we've often put in our mind that big equals unhealthy, then many times doctors will simply dismiss a problem until it gets too bad. Well, the same could work for someone who is a Caucasian woman, a white person, or a Hispanic person, because they're saying, well, they're big. Therefore, obviously, the problem is due to the weight. Well, that's a stereotype, and a person is now put in a category and said, well, if you lose the weight, you'll become healthy. But that's not necessarily the case. And therefore, these stereotypes can cause problems. But if a person who's smaller comes in, a person who's thinner is often presumed to be healthier. Think about it. We tend to think of a thinner person being healthy, which is why we are so shocked when a thinner person has a heart attack, or gets diagnosed with diabetes, or has high blood pressure, because somehow we put together thin with fit and big with unhealthy. But that's the stereotype we have. Unfortunately, so do many health professionals. They have the exact same stereotype in their minds many times. Therefore, there can be a person who is smaller, eats a lot of different bad foods, and have a very unhealthy diet. But because they're small, the doctor assumes, oh, you must be pretty healthy. And say they're having a cholesterol problem or they're having blood pressure issues. The doctor may just sweep it under the table because they're small and say, well, you're not that big. Just do a little exercise and you'll be fine. What the doctor may not know is that the person, even though they're small, may have a history of having cholesterol problems. And maybe the people in their family happen to all be small, but they all have a history of cholesterol issues and heart attacks at a young age. But the doctor doesn't think to ask those questions because the person happens to be a small person and seems to be fit. Therefore, the doctor stereotyping that person, saying, well, they seem to be small, they don't seem to have any problems right now, just exercise a little bit more and you're good. Not telling them to change their diet, not asking any questions about their diet, not looking into anything that they're doing. And say, oh, well, just go exercise, drink some water, and not going any further into anything else because they're thin. The stereotype there now would cause that person perhaps later on, to eat something and have a massive heart attack. And of course, the physicians, everyone is shocked because they can't understand, how did that person get sick and have a heart attack? Well, quite easily, because just because the person's small does not mean they're healthy. So in our minds, we have to remove the stereotype, and hopefully medical professionals will remove that stereotype as well. That just because a person is bigger does not mean that they're unhealthy. And just because a person is smaller doesn't mean that they are healthy. Each person must be treated separately. That you cannot put people just in a category. As a fat, just because a person seems to be fat does not necessarily mean that they are fat. Some people are simply bigger. Now, there are some people who seem to be small, but their bodies think that they are fat. That means that those stereotypes can actually work against people and cause lots of problems. Another way a stereotype can be terrible is in types of cancer. Think about breast cancer. Everything is pink. Everything, pink. Has anyone ever really noticed all the things with breast cancer is pink? Pink balloons, pink t-shirts. Breast cancer, we wear pink. But there's one little problem with that I see. There are many men who have breast cancer as well. There are men who are very strong, very tough, very masculine, who can develop breast cancer. And with all the feminine looking things that are breast cancer, I'm not saying that pink cannot be a masculine color, but let's just say the reason it's pink is because it gathers the women. Breast cancer is not just a female disorder. It's not. It's a male disorder as well. Men can have breast cancer because both male and females have breast tissue. Now, males generally do not develop the same way we do. On a normal basis, they don't. But men can have breast cancer as well. Now, sometimes it can be difficult. Say a man who has been working as a construction worker for years, and to realize he's now got breast cancer. There are some men who would be very taken aback to have to say that they have a disorder of that nature. Because the first thing they would say is, isn't that a woman's disorder? The answer is no. It's not a woman's disorder. However, it is a money disorder. Breast cancer makes a great deal of money simply because people know what they are. And because it's a predominantly woman disorder, it makes more money. But it doesn't mean men can't get it. Therefore, because of the stereotype and because of all the hype surrounding women, men can easily be left behind. And therefore, men can easily not go get diagnosed. Men can easily decide not to get tested. They can decide they may have a problem. They may feel something, but they won't go to the doctor and get it tested out because they don't want to seem as though they have a feminine disorder, a woman's disorder. And therefore, in a way, it's kind of this type of thing is blocking some people from getting the help that they need. Not that we should change our look and that we should change, but sometimes it'd be helpful to show that, yeah, we can be accommodating to everyone. Breast cancer is not just a woman's disorder. It's a male disorder. It's an anyone disorder. Anyone who has breast tissue can have breast cancer. It's not just a woman's disorder. And due to things of this nature, it can really block out a person from a male from wanting to seek help, because it means a person who classifies themselves as a male may very well have a difficult time seeking out help because it's seen as a disorder that's classified by women. And therefore, this person might not want to go to the doctor. And if they do go and they find they have it, they may be less likely to seek treatment because they don't want to walk on a floor that's all pink, because they're afraid of what people are going to think. So we have to think about it and say, we don't want to, in a way, gender some types of disorders. Now, like I say, it's ovarian cancer is different, but it just so happens It's a disorder that affects only women, meaning that it makes money, but probably not as much, due to the fact that not every single woman has those problems. Not every single woman has ovarian cancer, and not every single woman has ovaries. Some women are born without different things. So it's, in a way, certain things make more money than others make. It also happens thyroid cancer is quite common, but we don't hear a whole lot about thyroid cancer. That's most likely because most people don't know what it is or where it is. Thyroid's right in here. But that's something people should be aware of. Thyroid cancer is quite common. It's curable if you catch it in time. But thyroid cancer is a very common cancer to have, and it can be deadly if it is not caught in time. So that's something that people should be on the lookout, is thyroid cancer and throat cancer. Those cancers are on the rise. Thyroid and throat cancers are very much on the rise, and they can be more deadly than any other cancer. So, like I say, the cancers that are used to make money are not the ones that are the most deadly. There's a lot of research going into certain types of cancers because they're the money-making ones. But thyroid cancer and throat cancer definitely deserve to be studied and actually have a good amount of attention brought onto them, because many people are developing those cancers. But due to the fact that stereotype, again, women having the breasts, people know what they are, it becomes a more of a money thing. So like I say, as medicine sometimes can easily be stereotyped, such as in mental health. We often have a lot of things in mental health that are stereotyped. Another issue that can be stereotyped are addictions. Many times when people think of someone who's an addict, we have an idea of what an addict looks like. That's a stereotype. In our minds, we have a picture of what an alcoholic looks like. We see what we think an alcoholic would look like. However, we would not picture a mother who is in her 40s, 3 children, husband, working at church, going to work, taking care of her family, and being very successful. She goes to work every day. She's a great mother. She takes care of a great home. She looks very together. That is not our picture of an alcoholic. Of course not, because that's not a stereotype. We don't have that in our mindset. But that person can be an alcoholic. A mother, a wife or mother, overworked, overstressed, overwhelmed, could easily be an alcoholic. But because we have a stereotype, and that person could say, listen, a lady could come and say, listen, I'm an alcoholic. We wouldn't believe her. Why? Because our idea of an alcoholic is a guy staggering down the street, or of a man who's abusing his family, or of a woman who's strung out on the street. That's our idea. It's a stereotype. So therefore, we sadly end up missing people, and therefore we miss a person who's suffering solely because we have a stereotype. We have an idea of what a person is supposed to look like. Therefore, there are people crying out for help, but we will go out to the street instead of looking next door, instead of looking in our own neighborhood, instead of looking at the person in the pew next to you, or instead of looking at the lady who's overworked, or the guy who's overworked, or the person who's sitting next to you in the cubicle overworked. We don't look at them because the person who's in the cubicle next to you seems as though they are the most together person. They have their life together. They seem as though they're the best thing like they are together. But when they go home, they're drinking. But they have their lives together. And you would never say that they seem to have a problem. Therefore, many people, when they think of helping someone, most of us think of going out to the streets. Why? Because the idea, a stereotyping idea of an alcoholic or a drug addict is on the street. Not in the cubicle next to us, or not in the pew next to us. Not in the house next to us. If we live in a very nice suburban neighborhood, we don't think of that. That's not our idea. But unfortunately, due to these hard set stereotypes, we many times end up missing people who need us the most. We end up missing the woman who's so depressed she doesn't know what else to do. We end up missing the guy who's working, who has the money, who has a wife and children, and he's just losing it. We end up missing the child who doesn't know what's going on. We end up missing people who are completely out of it. We end up missing the young man who's struggling, trying to figure out who is he and what's going on. We miss those people because we have in our idea a stereotype of what they're supposed to look like. And therefore we miss them. We easily miss that person because we have an idea of what they're supposed to look like. And let's just say stereotypes cause many problems. Just as racial stereotypes and gender stereotypes cause problems, stereotypes as far as illnesses, addictions, problems cause problems as well. Many times we wouldn't think to look next door to see, is a person having an issue? What's going on? Talk to them. So like I say, is we never know. The person next door could be having a lot of issues. It helps sometimes to just talk to someone if they seem to be overwhelmed, if they seem like something is really going wrong, because it could be. It could be something terribly wrong. And if you are a woman who has a problem with alcohol or drug addiction, and you are being able to hide it very well, don't keep hiding it, because it's going to eventually come out. If there is a mental problem, if there is an issue, get help. Just because it seems to be a stereotype involved, don't let the stereotype stop you from getting the help that you need. Another issue that tends to be a stereotype issue is pornography. There are many women who are addicted to pornography, sadly to say. And the pornography addiction for women is a whole lot worse than it is for men. For men, many times their lives simply become unhinged due to their pornography. But for women, they can keep on functioning. They keep going. And many women, sadly, can become addicted to pornography and really don't know what to do. In fact, they many times need it to be able to function in their lives. Many times men's lives can become unraveled because of pornography, whereas a woman's life becomes normal and she needs it to function in a normal part of her day. But because of the stereotype that we have of pornography, we think of it as a men's problem and not a woman's issue. And therefore, hasn't been thought of that way. But now it's time for people, for medical professionals, for mental health professionals to start removing the stereotypes out of mental health, out of physical health, to realize that there's not a particular category any person can fit in. That each person is their own unique person. That just because a woman is a woman does not mean she fits in the category of every other woman. Just because a man is a man, he doesn't fit in the category of every other man. Just because someone goes as non-binary doesn't mean they fit in the category of every person who's non-binary. So just because a person is a person does not mean they fit in a mold of every other person. So now it's time for people to be treated as individual people. We are all human beings, and we need to be treated as individual human beings, not in a stereotype box. That just because a person is big, it doesn't mean they should be treated as though they're unhealthy. They should be treated as though they are a person, not seen as what their weight is on a scale. They should be seen as the human being that they are. And a person who's small should be given the same type of care as a person who's bigger. And a person who's bigger should be given the same type of care as a person who is healthy. So a person who is bigger should not be judged based on their size. A person who is smaller should not be judged based on their size. Overall, when it comes to our health care, we have to take it in our own hands and know that we are an individual person, and to recognize when we're being stereotyped for who we are, and know that we deserve to be treated as individuals. And hopefully, as time goes on, our medical professionals, mental health professionals, will learn the same thing, that we're not just people. We are individual human beings who are working to live in our world together. Thank you very much for watching. I hope to see you soon. Goodbye.